Hello my friends, it's the Game Boy Geek here, and today you'll be creating a beautiful garden of vibrant flowers, majestic trees, alluring paths, and eye-catching features. Flourish is co-designed by the creator of this beautiful smash hit Everdell, and it's a card drafting game for 1 to 7 players, plays in about 20 minutes for ages 8 and up, and published by Starling Games. Now it's on Kickstarter right now, so I'm going to show you how the game works, and I'll see you on the other side. Now this is a Kickstarter preview, so you're going to want to check the Kickstarter link in the description of this video to see all the final art and components and all the pledge levels. Now Flourish has multiple ways to play and a few variants and 2 expansions. I'm going to cover all of that here, but let's first start with the competitive base game. Now over the course of the game, you're going to be drafting cards and passing cards to your neighbors and getting cards from your neighbors. This is a 4-player game setup. The game is played over 4 rounds. Each round you'll be placing 3 cards face up into your garden, so at the end you'll have 12 cards face up. Some of these cards will score at the end of the round, and some of them will score at the end of the game. We'll go over scoring a little bit later, but this is typically what you're doing in the game. At the beginning of the game, each player is going to get 6 cards. Now these cards are secret from other players, but you can hold them in their hand and look at them. From these 6 cards, you're going to select 1 to play face down in front of you, but you're also going to select some to pass to your players. So let's show you how this works. So I've selected the one face down in front of me. Now you're going to select 2 other cards, 1 to pass to your neighbor on your left and 1 to pass to your neighbor on your right. And it's going to go on the other side of this wall because they're going to end up picking these cards up. And your neighbors are going to do the same thing. They're going to pass a card to you. This will come from this neighbor and you'll have one from the other side. And notice how cool these little walls look. Now once everyone has finished this, each player is going to reveal the card they selected this round and place it face up in front of them. They're then going to draw these 2 cards into their hand. These are going to be ones they can choose from in future plays. And everyone's going to draw a card off the top of the deck as well. Now you'll start to build your garden in front of you. Again, each round you're going to have 3 cards face up at the end of the round. But let's talk about these cards. These cards can have different symbols on them, and some of the cards in the bottom right will have end game scoring. So this card tells me I'm going to get 1 point for every one of these symbols here in my entire garden at the end of the game. So even after my first card, I've got a good long-term strategy to work on. Now you'd follow that exact same process of drafting again, so now you're going to get a second card to reveal after everyone's done what we showed earlier. And this card, now some of the cards have these icons in the bottom left, like this is a hive type of card. It's also going to give us a symbol, but in this case in the upper left it has round end scoring. And this says you'll get 2 points for every one of these rose symbols that's in either of your neighbor's garden. So you're going to be looking at your neighbor to your left, your neighbor to your right. And for every one of these symbols they have in their garden, you're going to get 2 points for each of those. So you really have to watch what your neighbors are doing. And maybe after the 3rd card drafted in this first round, I draft this one. Again, it's going to give me some new symbols. This is a tree. And this is going to say at the end of the round, I'm going to get 1 for each of these. So at the end of the round, again, we're going to have 3 here at the end of the first round. We're going to then score any end of round bonuses. But I also wanted to show you that this has an end game goal as well. This is saying that at the end of the game, you get 4 points for each pathway card that has that symbol. So like this, if I had played this on my garden throughout the game, it has this symbol, it's a pathway, I would score 4 points for having that. So that's some end game goals. But again, at the end of the round, you're doing just these top ones. So I'd get 1 point for each of these icons in my entire garden. So I'd get 4. And then I get, again, 2 points for either one of my neighbors, whichever has the most of these symbols. I'd get 2 points for each of those. And then we would start another round. Now scoring is tracked with this cool dial. Let's say we had scored 10 points this round, and so it would look like this. So you would continue the next round the same way I showed you before. So at the end of that round, you'd also have 3 cards in front of you. Now, you'll do the round end scoring for the cards played this round. In this case, it's only this. But you'll look at all the cards for the scoring, meaning this is 1 point for each one of these, and I have 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6. So I would get 6 more points that we would put on our score tracker. You do not rescore the round end from the previous rounds, but remember you're always using the icons or symbols that are on those for this round's end round scoring. Also, check out this one. It is a feature. It has a little water fountain there. And this says I'll get 9 points at the end of the game if I have at least 1 tree. And of course, I do have one. Then you'd follow that drafting procedure again. At the end of the 3rd round, you'll have 3 more cards. Again, you'll be doing any round end bonuses like this. 1 point for every one of these symbols, and 1 point for every one of these symbols in your own garden. And of course, I've got some game end goals that I'm working on. 2 points for each of these symbols, and 3 points if there's a tree in both of my neighbors' left and right garden. Now at the end of the third round, setting up for the last round is a little different. You add the 2 cards that your neighbors gave you, but you don't draw one from the deck. And then each player actually plays 3 simultaneously face down in front of them, instead of just doing it one at a time. And then everyone flips it up once everyone has played their cards face down. So at the end of the round, you would then score the round end bonuses again, like 1 point for every one of these symbols in my entire garden. This one is, if I have more or equal to either one of my neighbors of this symbol, then I'll get 6 points. Once everyone's done the round end bonuses for that last round's cards, then everyone will actually score the end game bonuses for any cards they have in their entire garden. I've kind of talked about all of them as we've gone through them. This one would have been 9 points if you have at least equal or more than this symbols in both of the neighbors' gardens. This is 4 points if I have a pathway with that on it. So you would score all these end game goals, and then whoever has the most points is the winner. Now, if you want to play the cooperative mode, you can talk about what's out on the table, but you can't talk about what's in your hand. And at the end of the game, depending on the amount of players, you'll see where your score is at, and you'll see which one of these 3 medals you've won. Now you've seen most of the card types, but there's some symbols that you haven't yet seen. And this, on the back of the rulebook, it shows you all the different types of icons that are here in the bottom left here, like this is a wall, and this was a lawn. And this is like you'll get 1 point for any one of these logos in the bottom left at the end of the game. Game also comes with some double-sided player aids as well to help you with scoring and such. Now when you play a 2-player game, there's 1 wall between you, and when you pass cards, you pass both of those other cards to that other neighbor, and you'll be getting 2 cards from the other player as well. And when you're doing things like neighbor's garden and such, you count the symbols in both your neighbor's garden and your own garden. And when you compare to either or both neighbors, you compare only to your neighbor. So it's a slight variant on the scoring and the way it works, but there's definitely a variant specifically made for 2 players. There's also a garden show variant. There's all these different ribbons. Now these get shuffled up and each player gets 3 of these dealt randomly. And at the end of the game, if you have the most of each of the ribbons you have in your garden, then you win the ribbon and you flip it up for 7 points. So you can win up to all 3 of them. But you don't just play 1 game, you actually play a series of 3 games, and at the end of the game you add up all the ribbons you've won and you add up those points, and whoever has the most is the winner. Now there's a solo version. You're playing against a solo player called McGregor. They get a deck of 12 cards over here to the right. You're going to get 6 cards. You're going to play 1 as normal into your garden. You're going to place 2 just like this on the other side of the wall next to McGregor's. Then McGregor will play from the top of his deck into his garden, and then you'll take 2 cards off of his stack into your hand, plus 1 off the main deck into your hand. And then finally take the 2 cards you passed him, and they go into this deck, but this gets shuffled. So some of the cards that you pass over there will end up in his garden, but some of them will end up back in your hand. Now at the end of each round and at the end of the game, you'll score as normal. But at the end of the game there, you would take your score, you would minus McGregor's score, so this minus this is 50, and you'd look to see what medal you get. So 50 or more would be gold medal. Now there's also a compost variant, and this is a way for you to cycle through more cards in the deck. In addition to playing 1 card in your garden and passing 1 to each of your neighbors, you can also discard a card face down off to the side, and then instead of just drawing 1 card from the main deck, you'll be drawing 2, so you get to see more cards. Now there's 2 expansions in the game, Friends and Follies. This is the Friends expansion, beautifully illustrated little friends there. And now there's 15 cards, but each player is going to be randomly dealt 2 of these face down, and they're going to be able to look at them, and at the end of the game they'll choose 1 of them to score, and these just give you another end game goal to go for. For example, 4 points if you have at least 1 pathway, or 4 points if you have at least 1 hive, or 5 points for every set of 3 of this symbol you have at the end of the game. Things like that. So over the course of the game, you're going to be figuring out which one you're going to go for and really shoot for that. Now you can play with this with the cooperative version, and your 2 friends cards go face up beside your scoreboard for everyone to see. If you're using this in the solo game, you do not give McGregor any friend cards. The other expansion is the Follies. Now each player gets 1 of each of these 5 follies, which are essentially your magnificent structures that complement your garden. Now the way these work is at the end of each round, this is 3 rounds that we've already played. So at the end of each round, you can place some of the follies. Now when you place these follies, you must place it on one that has the same symbol of that. You can never place more than 1 folly on a card. And when you place it, you can rearrange the cards in that row as to like which spot they are. So you could have placed this card here and this card over here. It's okay at the end of the round to kind of rearrange those ones for that round and place a folly on it like that. Now at the end of the third round, when you're placing the 3 cards for the 4th round, instead of placing all 3 below like normal, you can place them adjacent to one of the cards sort of on the outside, because this will help you score the follies. So let's talk about why you do that and how you score them. So for this one and all of them, you're going to score 2 points for every symbol that is on the card that this is on, and every card that's adjacent. Diagonal does not count. So it's like 2, 4, 6, 8, 10, 12, 14 points for that folly. Now this one here gets 2, 4, 6 points, but if you're next to one that has no symbols, you get 3 points for that card. So now you're at 9 points for this folly. And this one got us 2, 4, 6, 8, 10. However, each folly you were not able to place into your garden is -5 each. So we just lost a total of -10 there. And then whoever has the most points at the end is the winner. Now, if you're playing the solo mode, you don't give McGregor any of those follies. And if you're playing with solo, you increase the required score by 30 for each of these. And if you're playing cooperative, you also increase all the scores by 30. Well, there you have Flourish, and as I showed in the overview, it's a beautifully illustrated game that has great table presence, simple rules, quick play time, and multiple ways to play. Now, if you'd like to see everything that comes in the Kickstarter, different pledge levels, all the final art and components and such like that, check the link below and it will take you directly to the Kickstarter project page, and I'm sure that Starling Games would love your support.